Welcome to the third CFO forum on the role of CFO in value creation, to be addressed by Mr. Mitanshu Shah and to be moderated by Mr. Rajiv Bhatt. And I request to further Mr. Rajiv sir to take over the session and moderate the program. Before that, I will request all the participants to keep your video off. Your mics are already muted, and any questions you have during the presentation, just put it in the chat box, which later Mr. Rajiv will be moderating in the end of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Rajiv sir.
Thank you, Radhika. Thanks very much. And thanks for having us again on this wonderful forum. And the first two were in real person we had at the MS Center, and this one we are having it online. Thanks for everyone to join in this remote online mode as well. And my special thanks to Mitanshu for agreeing to be part of this exciting forum and sharing his immense experience and rich experience, I would say, as a finance head, and his over 2 decades of journey, how he has seen the role of a finance professional evolve. And obviously, I know Mitanshu quite well. So as a person, when you meet him, he doesn't appear to be a finance person. He appears more like a writer and a travelogue person who loves to, who enjoys traveling, who enjoys writing and reading as well. So I think the whole perception of a finance person who is, kind of number cruncher, who is always kind of focused on risk, governance, compliances, all those jargons which you talk about, quite different when you meet Mitanshu. So I would say give a lot of compliments to Mitanshu to help change the perception of the finance function and the controllers function, and make it more lively and make it more interesting for a lot of youngsters actually to take an inspiration and maybe aspire to become a person like what Mitanshu has achieved so far in his life. So I think without much ado, I would welcome everybody to participate. And as Radhika mentioned, please feel free to drop in your questions in the chat box, and we'll have a Q&A later on as well once the chit chat with Mitanshu is completed. And the idea would be to have a more free flowing session where I will just try to probe Mitanshu a bit, and then it is up to Mitanshu to respond in the way he would like to. And I'm sure you will have a lot of fun listening to Mitanshu's exciting journey so far. So I think Mitanshu, welcome, and thanks for being part of this session. To start with, what I would like you to do is just quickly introduce yourself. And I know you have had a very interesting journey so far, but maybe in 2-3 minutes, if you would like to summarize your journey till date, it will be useful for the audience to understand and get a perspective.
Sure. So Rajiv, thank you very much, and thank you all the viewers. I mean, the participants here for taking out the time and listening to us. Actually, Rajiv has been a friend for very long. I mean, and he's just spoke about probing. I mean, and I cannot agree more than this, because he was my internal auditor actually. So and he as a EY, I mean, they used to probe us a lot actually. But that being more on a humor side, I mean, I would very quickly go through what Rajiv has requested me to do, talk about my journey. So I mean, I started this career in finance some 25 years back actually. Started with a very large multinational called Hext Marion Russell, which was a pharmaceutical major. Today's Aventis. Went on to move and work for Sun Pharma, and then moved on to Schneider Electric. And last 15 years, I'm with Alembic Pharmaceuticals now actually. So that has been the journey. I mean, and specifically, if I have to mention, I would say that, and Rajiv captured it very nicely. I have never seen finance as a role which is, a mundane role, a role which is kind of, which bogs you down with numbers. I've always been like a guy who sees what is next. I mean, and then be a catalyst for the growth for the organization actually. As we talk, as we go into deep into the discussion, discussion. I mean, will share, my thoughts on this, also share my journey on this, and some very interesting anecdotes as we go into the discussion. But Rajiv, I mean,
Yeah.
anything on specific, I mean, I could talk about, I'll be happy to answer those questions.
Yeah, I think sure, Mitanshu. I think this is very useful for everybody to understand that you have a perspective from both an MNC to large promoter-led Indian companies like Sun Pharma and Alembic. So I'm sure as we move along in the discussion, a lot of learnings will evolve for the audience from experience with different kind of cultures, different kind of management structures, and how, as a finance professional, you have navigated your own career as well as you added value to those organizations. So I think before we do that, Mitanshu, just going back to the early days of your career, when you started your journey as a finance professional, what kind of aspirations you had in those days, and do you think that you have been able to walk through that aspiration journey, or you think that it has been exciting and exciting path which actually requires you to constantly learn, relearn, and as you mentioned, think what is next and evolve as the environment also takes a different shape. How has your journey evolved so far? Has it been more like a linear progression, or it has evolved as you have been like a batsman who plays with the ball?
No, frankly, I mean, my journey is no different from a journey of any other professional. I mean, in the field of finance, actually. So I also started with a very modest, role of finance and accounts. I mean, I actually started my career as a bill passing job. Okay. And, I did it for 6 months. But I think, I see a lot of youngsters in the group, and, I'd like to share a anecdote here. So, you know, as they say that you should never see a function as a function which is like not seen as no lucrative function. I mean, uh, let me tell you, when they gave me a bill passing job in my first few days, I came up with some very beautiful reports in first 6 months of my stint, that why are you kind of procuring these materials from interstate? You can do it from intrastate, and you could get this kind of benefits if you do it. Why are you buying only from this kind of vendor? You could also have this kind of thing. So immediately after 6 months, the guys thought that oh man, this guy belongs to a different league. I mean, so a routine bill passing job was also kind of created into a very interesting, value driven, bottom line enhancing job, actually. And that is what today's CFOs and CEOs are looking into the youngsters, actually. So when they recruit them, I mean, what they'll see is you put a person on a turf, I mean, and then he performs. I mean, you recently saw such a bouncy track of GABA. I mean, there were three players who completely did an outstanding job, right? So that is what the leadership always kind of seeks and looks into the people. And those are the guys who kind of walk to that turf, will get selected for the next role. So that is what I did for first 6 months. And then immediately they found that this guy has got analytical brains. I mean, today, see, people would have all data and everything, but how to use that data is of critical importance, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's extremely important. This data mining these days is easy, I mean, but then how to interpret that data and make it easy for the decision makers to take the call. If you aid today people with those kind of analytics, that is something which is going to really help support and make kind of organizations look for those kind of talents, I mean,
Yeah.
across. So that has been the endeavor. That is what we that is what we I saw. Moving ahead, I mean, moved to a very interesting environment of job in Snyder. And that is that role was extremely challenging and interesting, because I had a CEO who was one guy, and I learned a lot from him. And I really wish to take 2 minutes, Rajiv, on this and talk to you.
Yeah.
And this guy, he was a globetrotterer, okay, and he was in office for like 6 months, and 6 months he was not, okay. And that is where, I think that is that eureka moment which makes you a man out of a boy kind of situation, and that, see, that situation and that environment is really given to everyone. I think who seizes the opportunity and makes it all good and count for him, you know gets the success in life actually. So it so happened that, this guy is a globetrotter. He stays 6 months in office, 6 months is out, and there were two things that I could have done. One is, sit back, enjoy that time, do nothing, because I was in my prime youth. I could have spent time the way I like. I mean, no, I didn't do that actually. Though being a finance guy, I cut across the boundaries. I didn't look into those boundaries. I went into all the technical fields that I need to, touched upon, supply chain, R&D, innovation, manufacturing, regulatory issues, all of that basically. And then when he used to come after 6 months, he used to always find a new Mitanshu into that. I mean, he would always find a new guy who has charismatic leadership qualities, who's able to take decisions. See, today I think, the one thing that really uh, makes difference between a common guy and a leader of substance is, one needs to take decisions. You may take wrong decisions, but you have to still take those decisions. If you don't take decisions, you're not going to know at the end of the day whether the decisions were right, wrong, anything. I think that is in complete, I would say that, enormity I understood in Snyder, and I put to practice. And that is where the whole difference was made. And then I was really ripe for the right innings at Alembic, where, they were seeking for somebody who could head the finance and accounts. Again, the role was same, finance and accounts. I mean, and that's it. I mean, that they needed a head of finance and accounts. So that's not the journey I stopped. I mean, absolutely not. So what I did is, immediately, and Rajiv, I could take 2 more minutes on this. I mean,
Yeah, please go
to
ahead.
talk about this, transformation within Alembic actually.
Yeah.
So I joined Alembic in 2006, 15 years, as Rajiv just said actually. I quickly moved on to, non-value to a value add roles actually. And that mean doing, a lot of restructuring exercises for the company, having strategic thinking for the company, do a business development roles. I mean, get into, the procurements and, efficiencies of the procurements, and, creating the risk matrices. Also, talk about the mitigation strategies on those risks actually, lead the IT initiatives. I mean, because at that time you will all recall that time was such that people were moving onto the new gen technologies, and all these companies were very, very new, all the IT companies were new, and there were lot that companies could have done at that point in time. So work towards that actually. uh, One thing that we very, very consciously wanted to work, and which was in the mind, was to enhance the ROCs in the company. Because Alembic, always used to be kind of a company which would, so okay, when I joined we were like 300 odd crores of turnover with 30 crores of profit actually, okay. And and of today's environment, where we are boasting of 6,000 crores of sales and 1,500 crores of profit before tax actually. So that has been the fantastic transformation which has happened in last 15 years. So lot of these things were extremely important. I think the capital allocation strategy was something that we worked on, was extremely a tough rope to walk at this point in time, because we were extremely late in the international markets. Some of our peers had gone into it 2 decades back. And this real question was posed to us, that should we make this investment today? If we make this investment today, maybe we will fail, maybe we may not generate the kind of ROCs which street is expecting us to generate. And so there were a lot of ifs and buts. I mean, but that's where I think kind of role that a CFO plays. I mean, the head of finance plays, and um, what we quickly did is, at that point in time, we Alembic was kind of a large juggernaut. I mean, when you say it had a real estate business, it had a fine chemicals, it had, I mean, power producing assets, and it was a developer, and it also had a pharma business. So we said, it's very important that we are perceived as a core pharma company. And that's why the first step that we did was to demerge this in 2010-11 into a separate company called Alembic Pharmaceuticals from Alembic Limited. So all the traditional businesses stayed into Alembic Limited, and Alembic Pharma became a company which was like purely focused towards the pharma stuff. And I think from there is no looking back. The role My role largely has evolved towards betterment of the bottom line, revenue boosting, constantly talk about the margin improvements, basically ensure that the all the key parameters, the key ratios are in control, constantly keep checking with your peers, how you've performed with them, where you lack, where you kind of are not really doing good. Have more focus on cash flows rather than only P&L. Actually, those are the kind of things that I have been performing here of late. Also, as you kind of grow up, and the challenges also increase in terms of the management of the team, actually, because as you grow, I mean, we were only at that point in time 2,500 people. We are today 15,000 people, actually. So it is also, you have to come up with the career plans for the people. You have to also talk about the succession planning. You have to work with talent diversity, basically. And so these are the emerging kind of things which we have seen in Alembic. I'll rest my talk here. I mean, because Rajiv asked me that how the things have transformed from the first job to this. I mean, and probably that is what I tried to cover in nutshell.
So I think that was actually excellent coverage, Mitanshu, and the idea is that it gave a good spectrum to all of us of what we have done. But if I have to just kind of dissect it in a more tangible outcomes for the audience, I think to start with, you have to be obviously very good in your functional domain, which you were, So that's where your initial days of being in the accounts payable job, bill passing job, help you to gain insights into a seemingly mundane task, and also the ability to think out of the box and to look beyond different silos in the organization. I remember, I think 20 years back when I did my CA, the ERP system wave was just at the beginning. We were at the cusp of SAP's. I remember the first SAP installation which happened in ONGC, which I was part of after my CA. And after I cleared my CA, the first job I got was at ONGC as a campus interview. So in those days, getting an IT system was also a luxury. And in today's days, compared to that, data is at your fingertips. But it is more important how you are able to leverage that data and information and to make meaningful decisions. And as you rightly mentioned, the ability to take the decisions at the right time. In hindsight, you can say the decisions are right or wrong. That is a different matter. But to take decisions and move on is an extremely important, I would say, attribute. And it's not only for a CFO. I think it is for everybody in the organization to have that attribute. So I think hearing your story, it seems that you not only had a good blend of strong fundamental and analytical skills, but also the skills which you gained over time, and you gained those skills because there was willingness to change and adapt to the realities of life. As you move to different organizations, different cultures, how you cut across silos, how you build your internal network, how you are able to kind of find out areas of improvement, as you mentioned about efficiencies and so on and so forth, are extremely important. And I think as a finance head, you obviously have your eyes on the scoreboard, as we call, and what are the, you are like a doctor of the organization. You know the pain points. You are looking at the health report of the organization in the form of cash flows or balance sheet or P&L or whatever you have, MISs. So I think as a finance person, we are in the right position to be able to think across the organization and connect the dots, I would say. And I think that's what you have done so beautifully in your journey, which you just explained. in a nutshell, I would say that you have been able to connect the dots across organizations, different siloed functions, bring them together, and then see how it all can translate into a better ROCE. Because ROCE is nothing but reflection of your organization's efficiency, capital allocation decision, so on and so forth. Everything, it all culminates into a number called ROCE. But what goes behind the number is, is a lot of effort. So I think that's, I would say, a really a commendable job which you have done. And for a CFO, that having that goalpost of enhancing ROC or enterprise value is a very important goalpost to have, which eventually drives him to take a lot of actions which are beyond his conventional finance function. So I think maybe I would just, this is my summary of what you just mentioned, in terms of cutting across silos and ability to look beyond numbers to be able to enhance organization value. And in the process, I think you have done things like restructuring, you have done things like, QIPs, you have helped in M&As and so on and so forth. So which again, we'll come to that in a bit. What I wanted to also check with you is, in your journey so far, you mentioned about the people element, that you have been able to, at some point, you had to evolve yourself to be more a people person as well. And that's a very important dimension of a CFO or a finance person. Because many times people perceive finance guys not to be too people oriented. They believe that they work in their cabins and just deeply into numbers. So was it a kind of a really a tough transition for you as a person, or did you really work to, and did you have to really, work towards it in terms of becoming a more people person and driving a team of, what's your team size today, Mitanshu, in Olympic?
It's like 100 plus. Yeah.
Wow, in finance, tax, and accounting, is it?
Yeah.
Yes. What are the, so how did you actually manage that transition, being from finance guy to a more of a people guy?
Yeah, I kind of, I absolutely relate to what you are. I mean, and that is what, people's thought resonate with, when you kind of say accountant. I mean, they were like a classical bean counters, and there are 1,000 jokes around that. And even if you have to portray an accountant, you will see a, thick guy with, very thick glasses on the, and, and a mota guy sitting on a chair, and, and that, and invariably he has to carry so much of tension and stress, and, completely drinks tea all the time. And, that is how you kind of Christianize a accountant's role and job actually. But I think it's all about, one's attitude towards what one is doing actually at the end of the day. And it's all about your attitude towards how you look at things, how you approach things, and how you want things to be worked out around you. So you are the one, you have to create a congenial environment uh, around around you. I mean, because what's going to happen otherwise is, you create an aura of um, being completely in silo, and not talking to people. What's going to happen is, you are going to stay in that silo and nobody's going to talk to you. I think the most important thing for this transformation is that one needs to be a guy who works outside the ambit of the finance role itself, which
Yeah.
means that, a person has to be with a big picture very clearly. He has to have a big picture in his mind actually. His duties have to be beyond the numbers. I mean, and one needs to become a complete solution oriented guy. So when you say, what do you mean by solution oriented? So you need to first understand the business. The biggest mistake with the finance guys these days do, or have been doing in past, is not to understand business. Till the time you don't understand business, I mean, it is. So what will happen, like, let me give you a anecdote. um, you are a accountant. You prepare a profit and loss account and balance sheet, and you go to your management on 6th of a month which is over, a subsequent month, and say, sir, I have come with a profit and loss account and balance sheet. Okay. By all likelihood, the CEO is really not interested to even see your face. Okay. Because he knows on 31st that, you clocked a turnover of 500 crores for the month. Your profitability is somewhere around 20%. So you've done a profits of close to 100 crores. Now you're going to go and show him a picture. Sir, our sales was 500 crores and we did profit of 99.2 crores. he says, don't waste my time, okay? Just get out.
Yeah.
Take a reverse scenario, okay? um, there are 4 days into the month, okay, the month in which you are working, and you see that things are not going as it was bound to go. So the mobility was not the way you wanted the mobility to happen actually. And you go to your CEO, and how do you figure that out? Through balance scorecards, and the active dashboards that you have, which will tell you that oh, things are not going the way it should have gone. And you go to him on 4th and 5th of the month, and you tell him that, look, boss, I see that if we tweak 1 2 3 things, otherwise we would be making 90 odd crores of profit. If we do this, we are going to end up doing 110 crores of profit for the month. In all likelihood, he's going to come and kiss your forehead, okay? Because he's going to see that, oh man, I mean, this guy is now deriving value to me. He's not showing me what is there, but he is telling me something to kind of really bottom line improvement, let's put it that way. So which is like becoming a solution oriented. So you own up the business, you understand the business, you own up those solutions, and you own up those narratives as well actually.
Yeah.
And then become a catalyst who kind of creates a cross functional teams, works there, demonstrates. People are then going to like you, love you. He's not going to see you that here is a guy who comes from an internal control department, he wants to control things, he wants to kind of no, you become their catalyst. You work with them. I mean, you work with the BD guy. You'd ask him, what are your problems, how can I help you? I mean, where are you facing? So that's it. That's how you show your strength actually, right? I mean, and that is how you can make a transformation journey. How then you are going to be perceived is that oh, this guy is a guy who is supporting and helping business. And that is how people will start more and more coming to you. Even your narratives on the control aspects would then be subtly kind of run through that kind of confidence which you have already gained. People will accept it joyously that, oh, this means business only, yaar dost.
Yeah.
Otherwise it is seen as a hindrance actually. So Rajiv, I think these are some of the things that we have tried to do. And that's how gain confidence of people across. And people do not see me now purely as a finance guy, but people see me more as a person who helps them, who's a team player, who kind
Yeah.
of comes and supports at the worst of the times, comes with the novel ideas, solution. He would always be part of a solution and not be a part of a problem. That's
Yeah.
how it is.
I think these are very important takeaways, Mitanshu. I think excellently summarized. Uh, because this is typically what people face at some point in their career as well. That once they grow to a certain level, they really need to go out of their domain and functions. And to the best way to do is if you can win trust of people around you across different, functions in the organizations. And that can happen if you really show genuine interest in their problems, and if you are able to help them by, as you rightly mentioned, giving them proactive solutions and at least helping them to think uh, across their problems and maybe giving them new dimensions to think as well. And that's what I think a finance person has a lot of, I would say, ammunition to do that, because again, as I mentioned, he has the numbers with him, he's on top of it. So if he can bring some comparatives of what the competition is doing, what they are doing, and bring some kind of analytics into the picture, a lot of confidence and trust can be gained across the function as well. I think so that is very important takeaway for all of us, Mitanshu, about how a finance person can evolve from a typical finance function to becoming more a team player. And that's what is really important as you grow up in your career as well, because beyond the point, without a team and you are managing a team of 100 plus people, that's actually extremely impressive and also very challenging, because talking to them, making sure that you are able to give them room to grow and develop themselves as well is extremely important. I think having said that, maybe while we are on people, also talking about culture, you have worked with MNCs as well as Indian promoter-driven organizations, and obviously cultures are quite different. So, in terms of your own latitude to work and to experiment different ideas, people sometimes have the perception that in MNCs you are sometimes stuck to a very focused area of work. you don't have much latitude because you're extremely process driven. On the other hand, if you are in a promoter driven organization, at least you are more entrepreneurial, I would say, where you can expand your reach, and the management also supports you. And then it's up to you if you want to grow beyond your domain and extend yourself and reach out. There's a lot of support in that sense, and that actually helps you to grow faster as a person as well. So, what was your experience been working with both an MNC organization and two promoter-driven organizations?
Yeah, I think, very, very interesting and very relevant question today, because, a lot of us face this thing. I mean, you would have heard people saying that, oh, I got a job in MNC, I'm all set now, So that is what happens actually. And one second. Yeah. Okay. And then, you will always have the other set of people who will say that, no, I am kind of a darling of my promoter, and I love working here actually. So and then there are other contrasting things as well I have seen. And just to exemplify, they'll say that uh, oh, MNC, I mean, but we are just like a herd, and I mean, everybody walks in the same herd, and all the policies come from the top,
Headquarters, yeah.
yeah, from head office, from France or US or any such place. And we are just here to execute what has been told us to execute. I mean, we can't put our brains into it.
Right.
And then and carrying the same narrative on the promoter driven organization, they'll say that oh, because promoter is a single brain. I mean, it doesn't things don't emanate out of the large collective decision. Whatever promoter says is the final word, and hence sometimes even if we disagree, we have to kind of still drag and do that actually. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that both the environment have their pros and cons actually. I think the smart CFO or a smart finance head is the one who knows how to navigate that actually. Okay. And that is what I kind of did it in. And, I would say that I had equal enjoyment working in the multinational environment and as well as the promoter driven organization. So I think, and let me talk a bit about the MNC. While I was there, what I tried to do is, though things were kind of emanating from the top, and policies and SOPs, and everything used to be charted out there, authority metrics used to come from there, everything was there. um, I still used to kind of keep pursuing and telling them that the local game is to be played in a different way, for the reason that there are local nuances, and if you don't take care of the local nuances, you're going to kind of fail actually. And I think somewhere, if you are sincere and serious about what you wish to do and what you are doing, people hear you. I mean, one way is you just keep block yourself and say that nothing is going to change. Other is you become a change agent, right? As you have heard that you become the change that you wish to. I mean, and
Yeah.
that. So I think it takes time, but if you do it, it happens. I mean, and coming to the current role, or the role in the Sun Pharma, which was largely a promoter driven organization, um, I would say that uh, I have loved this one as well, actually, because, and again, I'm telling you, you will love it if you have a positive mindset. So you love it because, here you get the complete freedom to express yourself. You have, you can build your teams, you can, take the new initiatives, and, you can just go and say that you're not bound by some silly SOP, which was written in, some southern France, actually, so yeah. I mean, so you can go, and the top management, the extreme final decision maker is just few feet away from you. I mean, so I cherish that actually. So, but then again, I've seen some friends of mine working in a promoter driven, he'll say that I have not seen my promoter for 2.5 years now. It's all about your attitude. So I would say that, I mean, if you make a change to your attitude, if you are forthcoming, if you have ideas, express them. Sometimes you may not be able to meet them. There are various platforms available these days. Write a mail, WhatsApp him, you know
Yeah.
somehow make your voice heard there. I mean, and I would say that if you have a point of relevance, point where organization is going to benefit, the promoter is going to run from any place and going to hear your story actually. So
Absolutely.
so that's how I look at it, Rajiv.
So that's actually very interesting, Mitanshu, and this is very good learning for many people in the audience as well. As you mentioned, youngsters in the audience particularly, that MNC or promoter-held companies both have their own, as you said, nuances. It's all up to the person himself of how you navigate and how you make the most of the situation in which you are, rather than cursing the situation. How you make the most of it, and that actually also builds up your own character as a person and helps you to take up larger challenges in life as well. Beyond your typical finance role, and that makes you a much better leader as well as you grow. And the respect that you gain from your team, it all emanates from these kind of experiences. And when you share with your team as well, I'm sure they will be equally inspired to learn about what you have done so far. So I think this is very encouraging and enriching, I would say, Vitanshu. Let
Thank
me
you.
spend some time on your, the largest stint which you have spent so far at Alembic. And you mentioned you joined when it was 300 crores. Today it is almost 20 times revenues, and the market cap has crossed what? It's about 20,000
20,000
crores.
plus crores,
15,000,
20,000.
yeah, 20,000 plus crores. So phenomenal value creation, and I think this is where we can spend some more time.
By the way, we love to talk in billions, so we say around 3 billion US dollars.
Yeah, 3 billion US dollars. Yeah, right. As long as dollar is still the currency of the world, we should talk about dollars before
True.
China comes in.
Yeah.
So I think it's a phenomenal value creation journey which you have witnessed, you have been part of, and you have been integrally helping shape that journey as well. Not being just a witness to it, but actually an integral part of the journey as well. So maybe taking a cue from that journey, what are the two, three areas which you would believe you have really been instrumental in shaping that journey beyond the finance function, which has helped you to take the organization to where it is today?
Extremely important question, because I've lived that journey, so I can best express it. I mean, so
Yeah.
this is not a question in theory, this is a question in practice actually. So
Right.
I love that. Okay, so I'll tell you. I mean, I did touch upon the demerger story, and so that one was the first one, I would say. Very very interesting, and the challenging job that I did here. This second one I would tell you, and this is extremely interesting and should be extremely interesting for the audience as well. When we were, as I said, we were extremely late as far as the whole journey of regulated markets is concerned, exports was concerned, and we were almost 2 decades behind the peers actually. And then it was that call about the capital allocation into the international business, and that once that call was taken actually, we did not have the critical mass. I mean, we had used to have few ANDAs and few DMFs, and we used to have the sales model run on only partners actually. So what will happen is we would kind of make all the products and give it to partners. Partners will sell it. We had no controls on the final realizable value of the products actually. And when that happens, you can understand. I mean, the revenue, you cannot predict your revenue. You cannot project anything. I mean, and you cannot project your. So you do all the efforts, but you are not able to kind of know that what is your bottom line going to look like actually. So it was in early 2014 that when we and we had just 20-25 kind of ANDAs at that point in time. And we prepared a concept note. We said that we have to go in the market and express ourselves very very well, all by ourselves actually. And that's how the whole idea of US front end was germinated actually. And what I want to bring to the table and perspective is these are the kind of thoughts, ideas a CFO can bring to the table, and which would completely transform the company, I mean, to a different level. And so the whole thought was that if that guy is selling in market, why can't we sell? I mean, and it required some sort of initial capital allocation. It required some learning. It required that you have the right kind of person in the US operations heading the complete operations. So there was a lot of hard work, initial hard work to be done. And we took that plunge in 2004, 14, and actually 2015 we put the US front end in place. And from a $0 million of turnover in 2015, to today's $300 million just in 5 years of journey with a 40 plus 45% CAGR. We moved from zero to $300 million of front end, and look at the value which it has created. And it's not about only value in terms of, the PNL. I mean, it is all about the learning. It is all about the taking that next plunge, the next level of decision making. I mean, and working in an environment where you are working with the best of the pharma companies of the globe, actually. So those were some, very very critical decision making processes that I was involved in. I consider myself to be extremely fortunate that management gave me that opportunity to work on those lines. After that, a lot of other joint ventures that we worked. And it was pertinent that sometimes you may not have that skill set into the company. What you do, you kind of join hands with someone, make a JV, get that critical skill set into the company, and then grow the. So we did a lot of joint ventures in terms of the dermaceuticals, and our NC. I mean, we did a Ryzen Pharmaceuticals as a. So that was another big leap. I mean, that we did. There were then came the time where there was a big windfall in the company, and there were 3-4 companies in this country who earned massive money out of a opportunity called aripiprazole. And Alembic also made tons of money in that. Then the idea was to, there was one way. Some companies actually distributed that money to shareholders, and thought that that's the best way to do. We didn't do that. I mean, we plowed back that entire profits into the company. We said we'll invest for the next level of growth, and that's how we created 2000 crores of capexes. Now the role of the finance head comes in, where he sees that oh, maybe there could be some risks, there could be some business risk. The key role of the finance guy is to ensure that the business risk does not transform into a financial risk. And that is how we came up with this idea of a QIP.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did a QIP. I mean, we did a fundraise of $100 million, and kind of completely made Alembic risk free. Yeah, I mean, there was no debt in the books, as we say, very minuscule debt as we speak at this point in time, actually. So I think these are some of the very very interesting things, big things that I'll talk about. But the smaller aspects, as I see, I mean, I think one of the roles is also, to see that what things are not going right. I mean, so we plunged into this Algeria as a country. We quickly realized that, oh, I mean, we don't see a future out here. I mean, I think exercising the stop loss strategy is a key attribute of a very successful CFO. Where to press the button and, close the transaction. We did that as well. I mean, when we thought that things are really not moving in the desired direction, things are not coming through, we said stop this. I mean, we close this, actually. So there are some bold calls that you need to take. As I said, stop loss, I mean, strategy. So Rajiv, this has been I would say some of the highlight points that has been done. Otherwise, you keep yourself extremely updated with what is happening in the external environment. Keep comparing yourself with the peers, if some, and generate the best alpha for the company, actually. And whatever is available in the external environment. For example, you look at the government doling away some good schemes for you. You have to completely go and latch it. I mean, keep your eyes and ears open. So when the PLI scheme into the place, we were quickly worked on it, and we put our application for PLI. So these are the kind of things that you see very interesting fundraising opportunities, when you see that there are opportunities where you have negative carry on euro LIBOR. You go and kind of because you have a natural hedge, go borrow there and take money and also receive the interest, actually. So that those are very interesting kind of environment that you work in. There are also, like, keep the organization always ready with the liquidity profile very intact, because you never know when you have a M&A emerging. You never know, I mean, what a growth opportunity could come to, so keep that liquidity plan ready. That's again a very important role that I constantly look into. The other interesting area that I started looking into last 5 years was the IR role, actually, which is a investor relations role. And I think today's CFOs considerable time goes into managing the expectations of the external shareholders, while internal could be met through HR as a function, or the key catalysts, the leaders themselves, the domain leaders. But the meeting the external stakeholders requirement is a very, very big thing, because today even the shareholders activism is at the highest of the levels, actually. You see a lot of proxy advisory firms pouching on you, and harassing the promoters, companies, and on whatnot level. You want the FIIs, DIIs to be completely listening to you, understanding your story, becoming partner to your story, supporting you in the bad times. You may not have a quarters where there could be sequential growth, there could be a degrowth. I mean, where you communicate, I mean, to your key shareholders, that why this has happened, how would you bounce back, what are the risk mitigation strategies in the place, and what the company is likely to do in the near future, so that their value is not eroded. So these are the functions that get kind of embedded into the IR role, and that is what I play these days, actually. So I am not sure whether I did justice to your question.
So this is actually perfect, Mitanshu. I think what I would take away from this answer is that your role is not only creating value but also preserving value, and that's very important. One thing is to create value by unlocking and doing demergers and going into newer markets, newer geographies, like you mentioned, the US market, which has been a jackpot for Alembic in the last 5-7 years. But at the same time, as you rightly mentioned, to keeping the reins on the organization, promoters and management would like to run like a jet speed. At the same time, as a finance function, you will have to ensure that you have
Yeah.
the reins in your hand, while you give them the right liberty and the right leeway. You don't allow, as you rightly said, the business risk to turn into financial risk. And we have seen so many stories of companies, uh, maybe to the extreme of going bankrupt as well, by taking wrong calls on the finance side. So I think that is a very important role of a finance function and a finance head, of not only giving them the right. It's like flying a kite. You have to give the right heel after jam and try and
Yeah, true,
at the same
true.
time, you also have to pull the string at the right time, to keep
Very
the kite flying high. If you don't do that, if you don't have a mix of both pulling and giving the reel, loosening the reel, you won't be able to fly the kite properly. So I
absolutely
think the
well
role of
said.
a finance function is like flying a kite
Right.
and
Yeah.
ensure that it soars high in the sky without much of a kind of headwind. Uh, so I think that's a very important takeaway. It is not just value creation, but also value preservation,
Yes.
and both go hand in hand. And maybe as a finance function, you will have to ensure that they are both the same two sides of the same coin. You'll have to ensure that you give the right weightage to the right aspect at the right time. And that's where people like you, who have been able to understand the business and the market and what is happening around the world, and that's where what you mentioned is very important. What is happening around you in the external environment, in your peers, in your competition, in the global environment, is very important for a finance person to keep an eye on that. Things like currency movements, things like interest rate movements, these are all important factors. And as you become more and more global, like Olympic has become quite global today, you will have to deal with more complexities which are beyond a domestic business. So
Yeah.
leading and managing those complexities are extremely important, and they can erode the value which you have created by all your hard work for so many years very quickly. So hence, I always believe that a finance function, even value, is like penny saved is penny earned. So if you preserve value, is as good as creating value.
Creating value.
So I think you have really walked that path very well, Mitanshu, and shown how to do both, I would say, create and preserve value. So again, kudos to you for that,
Thank
and
you.
helping Olympic to reach where it is today. I think another quick question before I, take on the questions from the audience as well. The role of digital has really transformed the way finance function has been shaping itself over the last, I think, a decade or so. Right from using those manual ledgers to sophisticated ERPs to now even RPAs, we call them, where we don't need people to do the mundane task of bank reconciliation and invoice processing. You have bots who do that. So how has Alembic been embracing digital, and what has been a role of a finance head like you to embrace digital in the organization to really create value in the organization?
Rajiv, I mean, this is a buzzword actually, and but I let me tell you, Alembic was always in the forefront of digital. You will not believe. I mean, the first of the SSC and HSC mark sheets computerized were printed in Alembic in
Mm-hmm.
late 70s. So government did not have the equipments and infrastructure to do it. Alembic was having it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is just as an example. I'm telling you that the awareness of the management was always there on this front. Again, I mean, the on the first ones, I'll say that the SAP, they embraced SAP much earlier than other companies did. So Alembic had SAP in 1997 actually. So
Mm-hmm.
that is the so what I'm trying to tell you is that company has all never shied away from taking digital initiatives actually, and our role has always been to kind of aid that, support that. What are the new things that we are doing today, and I'd like to talk about it in very brief, is the warehouse management system. I mean, very few have attempted this in this country on a SAP platform, and that is what we are doing now actually. So that is going to completely automate the way the entire supply chain is run. Okay, so warehouse management system is one project which is just got over 2 months back in Alembic, which was a very massive task. Last 1 year we all worked towards that to get that done. Of course, I mean, needless to say, when then pandemic struck, I mean, we were because everybody had to work from home, and we had to be digitally aware that how things are going to work. And so all of things were done. We rolled away kind of 3,000 laptops to everyone just in few days, and create that kind of infrastructure so that people are still in business. I mean, so that one was a very interesting job that we kind of did actually. Now we have been working on the data visualization portion actually, and advanced analytics. So it is very simple for people to work on the exception reportings. See, today you get so much of stuff that you really don't know where to put your head on actually. So now we are creating those interesting analytics which kind of gives exception to the top management. So every morning you just open it, and it's going to tell you that oh, these are the places where you just gone haywire or wrong. I mean, so those kind of things that we are working on. I mean, there are some boards which we have put in to work on that. There are some, we are working on the Power BI to as a support. I mean, to help us do that actually. Of course, learning management system, LMS was put sometimes back into Alembic. We've been taking help of you, are going to take help of you on the cyber aspects actually. So it's also very important that you one see, I could keep on speaking on all these initiatives, but it's the most important thing is you have to keep yourselves ready to kind of embrace the new things actually. You have to keep
Yeah.
your mind open to the new ideas. If you don't, I mean, then you could slip. I mean, and I think here the interaction is extremely important. Talk to experts like you, I mean, in the field. Get the people to know what your organization is. Do a risk assessment, boss. IT में क्या risk assessment है? Just go and do it. I mean, you will come to know that, oh, you are prone to so many risks actually. So I think that is where you need to be again a catalyst actually. So this is all what we have been doing, Rajiv, of late.
Yeah. No, I think fantastic. I think because what I'm seeing of late is also in most organizations, the IT function reports into finance function. And maybe that is a similar case even at Alembic as well, I
Yeah,
understand.
correct.
So it's very important to understand that IT is an enabler, but finance has a very important role to play in making sure that that enabler creates value in the organization. And it's very interesting that IT reports into finance because sometimes there will be areas where the IT might just want to spend a lot of money on IT, but finance guys also have to ensure that this IT spending is moderated and yet relevant for the
Yes,
organization. It's very
yes,
important.
yes.
So I think moving maybe in the interest of time, I would just like to ask one more question to you, Mitanshu. As a CFO, and what are the risks you believe? You already mentioned many of them, but just to summarize, top three risks which CFOs of today need to keep in mind while they're managing a complex and a global organization like Alembic. So what are the 2-3 risks you would really point out, and how have you helped your organization mitigate those risks?
I would say that, because we are in a healthcare, we are in a pharma space, right? I mean, and I'm going to talk to you about, our risks. I mean, pharma risks, because that's what I'm working with. I mean, if I would be working in an automobile, I would have different sort of risks. I mean,
Yeah.
but being in pharma, we have a very different risk profile. See, our biggest risk is, the FDA risk actually. And we as a top leaders, I mean, keep on talking about it day in and day out. That's to, how can this regulatory risk be minimized actually? Because you are aware, I mean, you may create a 3,000 crore of a plant, but tomorrow if your regulator use FDA, US FDA is going to just say that, look here is an import alert or a warning letter, you are gone. I mean, everything is gone down the drain. And that is what happened with so many pharma companies across actually. So we were thinking about it, and what should we be doing? I'll leave away a very good thought here. What we did, I mean, as a LMB can, having said that, where is a wood here? Oh, here. So, we have unblemished track record for last 10 years on the FDA. I mean,
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
yeah. So at
Remarkable,
first,
remarkable.
yeah, remarkable, exactly. So, we would have hardly couple of 483s coming in, and that too, I mean, very mundane in nature, nothing serious about, data breaches or, procedural lapses, and no, not like that. So what we did, we kind of, and this is because, I'm putting the risk, and I'm also showing the mitigation here. So what we quickly did is, we kind of worked through the mock audits, and lots of mock audits. And who does these mock audits? Is that, we kind of call these guys who are the unilateral agencies. These are the private agencies who are run by the ex FDA guys actually, who's retired from the FDA, and they come and they see it with their eyes. How do we make it more interesting for our people? Is we say that, if you kind of, your success or your KPI is to pass that audit and not the FDA audit. So if you pass that audit, in all likelihood you are going to pass the FDA audit as well actually.
Yeah.
And we call them unannounced. So, we not say when they are coming, and when they come in and they do this audit, and and when we find ourselves in a good shape, we always feel assured that, even if FDA walks in any day, we should be good to do that actually. So FDA on for any pharma remains the largest of the risk. The second risk, as we see, is like, okay. And one more thing onto that actually, of course you have to create just additional facility to ensure that, and map your key products onto the other plant, so that tomorrow even something happens, I mean, you have supplies assured from the other plant. So we did that as well actually. The second risk, as I see today, is, the data risk. Because, you of late we have seen, and I don't want to name the companies, though they are all in public domain, and there has been lot spoken
Yeah.
about it. There has been data thefts. There has been people who's just coming and entering your domains, and taking away the core part of your very intrinsic value of the data which you put in there actually. So I think that is a very, very big risk. And though we have put in one or other things to kind of, I'm still, if you ask me, what gives you a goosebumps at the right, this is the one which I would definitely top of my mind. Because, tomorrow somebody can come completely hack into your systems, and, take control of the things, or, completely demolish your systems. I mean, so there are, and then you work with, experts like EY, and, the likes of you, and, take these solutions. But data risk always runs very, very high onto the other one is, the I would say the geographical risk actually, because we are very much invested into the US as a markets, and, very large portion of our sales and the profits actually come from the US markets. Because and that has happened by design. It has happened by design, because, we spend 13-14% of our turnover on R&D, and this R&D in turn is completely biased towards the US products actually.
Yeah.
So that is a one geographical risk that we carry. And what we are doing is, now we have started investing into the alternate markets, getting impetus to the other geographies, and, so started working there as well. So I would say these are some of the top of the end, the risks that I kind of see. Of course, on the softer aspect, I would like to talk about is, the retention of the key people, key talent, and, the scarce talent that you have in this domain actually. So we have been very successful. I mean, in giving a congenial environment, a good environment to work here. People are very happy. Generally, people who join Alembic do not leave Alembic actually. They find this place as their home actually. So we have created that kind of work environment out here. So but that still remains a risk on your mind that if your key people are going to you're going to lose, what is going to happen. Raju, I'm very happy to say that out of the 18 identified leaders at the top, I mean, none have left us in last 6 years actually.
Wow, fantastic. Now, that talks a lot about the culture, management focus on people and leadership development as well, and also the opportunities they see in the organization. So
True.
they'll stick if there are opportunities for them also to grow professionally, and I think that's what the role of the management is as well, and that's eventually all boils down to the value creation aspect. If they see that there is value being created, and where people like you are already instrumental in creating that in that journey, when they see that there's value being created, they would love to be on board and be part of that whole exciting journey. I think that's very important. I think to retain good talent, you have to have an exciting value creation roadmap, without which it is very difficult for them to retain, even if they have the best loyalty for the organization, unless they see a win-win for the organization and for themselves. And that's where the finance function also has to be very much aligned towards their KPIs, their reward and remuneration systems, and keeping in mind the overall cost structures of the organization as well as the ambitions of the organization. So I think that's a
Well
very
put.
important role in people management as well from a finance side.
Correct.
Mitanshu, at least my questions can keep on going, but what I would do is I'll just take a few questions from the chat box. How has the pandemic changed functioning at Alembic Pharmaceutical? Is a very specific question, but would you
Yeah,
want to
I
comment
mean,
on that?
actually, people keep asking us this, and frankly, I mean, pandemic for all the most of the pharma companies has been a good turnaround. I mean, it has been a good story for most of the pharma companies, and we being, extremely good at, anti-infectives, cough and cold, pain management areas. Azithromycin being our largest product, actually, we started getting orders from all the state government, the national government, and national governments across the countries actually, about azithromycin. So azithromycin has really helped us. I mean, first quarter, second quarter, even third quarter had good amount of azithromycin built into it actually. So the other thing is, so okay, that was all on the numbers and stuff like that. But on the other side, I think it has made organizations more mature actually, let me put it that way, because we have created this skill set, we have created the environment, we have created those incubation boxes that tomorrow if something sort of this is going to happen, strike you, how would you run your organization actually, so and that is where we created those matrices that how bad this could go. I mean, and we also came to know, I mean, a lot of things which was first time actually. So uh, we were very unique when we handled this problem actually. So when we put up the plant, like the plant, this was a big issue. So we kind of segregated everybody right from the bus which picks them up to the queue which takes you to the plant. Within the plant we created multiple clusters so the infection doesn't go into the, so thousand things that were the learning. And now what we are doing, we have created a kind of a learning center for us, that tomorrow if something sort of this is going to happen, how well prepared we can be to face something like this. So in every problem you see a opportunity, and then try to kind of see that how can I turn around this into an opportunity. I think that has been the case with us as well actually.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Absolutely. When I talk to many other organizations, this pandemic has made them more resilient. And I think this resilience will also help them to grow in the future times when, because it may not happen that we'll have a similar situations again and again. These are some of the tail events in life, So once you have been able to manage those tail events, manage a normal course of business is much easier. And organizations which have really done well in the current times, like Alembic, I'm sure they will be much better placed in the non-COVID times as well. So I think that was the question from the chat box. Just trying to see if there are, for the audience, if there are any questions, please feel free to put it on the chat box. We'll just take the questions one by one. There's another question which says, what are the challenges which you faced when you joined Alembic Pharmaceutical? I think you have already addressed that. But if you want to highlight something which you have not covered so far.
Yeah, I would say that the cultural, for personally for me, I mean it was a massive cultural shock. I mean, let me have this liberty of answering it, very honestly, because I came from the ages of the source of France, and getting into the company of Alembic of 2006. God forbid, I mean, the other guy with a little elder age would have got a heart attack, actually. So, but I think it's all about navigating yourself through these kind of challenging environment, keeping yourself open to the thoughts, ideas. I mean, picking the right people still to work for you at that point in time. You are able to understand between the good and bad at that point in time, and embrace what is true for the organization, irrespective of the challenges that can come in front of you. Be and stand for your point. I mean, clearly, do not sway away with the popular vote. I mean, if you have come as a change agent, be a change agent. Do not kind of get swayed away. I think these were the kind of things that I faced initially, but I think first 12, 18 months, once I navigated it, I mean, I was on a right course, actually. So anyone who joins the organization would always face bit of a resistance, but how do you kind of overcome that and thrive in that kind of environment? um, Makes you a man of a solid attitude, and solid values, and you continue to believe in yourself. I've always thought that somebody who can back yourself is you yourself. If
Yeah.
you are the one who can give self confidence to yourself, there is nobody who can instill self confidence in you. If you have self confidence, you can, if you feel that you can make this happen, you can turn around this, you can definitely do this. Nobody can come and instill that kind of thing in you. So if you carry that kind of attitude and confidence in you, I don't think there is anything which can be not addressed. You can just face any situation in life.
I think very well said, Mitanshu. And I think on that positive note, I think it is a very important lesson, not only as a finance person, but as a human being generally. I think, to have believe in yourself and to be your own mentor. That is very important. I think in that on that positive note, I think we are running short of time now, probably 7:10, and there's another program which I just came to know on the same link. So,
Okay.
so I think thanks a lot, Mitanshu, and thanks for the lovely session. I'm sure the audience also equally enjoyed as I enjoyed taking this session and learning a lot from you. I think people who have any questions, they can write back to AMA, and maybe AMA can help facilitate a one-on-one session with you as well if there's any need, requirement from anybody in the audience. But generally, again, thanks a lot for sharing very candidly your journey so far, Mitanshu. We all wish you all the best and more exciting times ahead. And personally, I look forward to kind of remaining in touch with you and seeing what how the journey shapes up in future for all of us.
No, thank you very much, for to AMA first for providing this platform, and B Rajiv, that we could do this. I mean, we always had this in mind for doing for a long time. We couldn't, but I'm still happy that we could do this. I am available for AMA for you all the time, actually. So thank you very much for providing this. I wish all the viewers and everybody very safe 2021, and very prosperous year ahead, actually. Thank you.
Thank you. On
Thank
behalf
you.
of AMA, Nair sir, I would thank Mr. Mitanshu to address all the members, and Mr. Rajiv, who had kindly coordinated this program. And thank you all participants for attending this program and taking out time and asking such relevant questions. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. Stay safe. Bye, sir. I'll end the meeting here, sir.